Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So, we're going to talk about Blazing Salvo. Now, this isn't the final build guide, but this is like the video that is like we're almost at the build guide. We've dropped everything. I'm at a stage where I can almost take down Uber Sirus. I'll just quickly turn the audio down because that's getting to me right now. So I'm at a stage where I can take down Uber Sirus. I've tried Uber Shaper, but not before I beefed it up even more. Yeah, pretty much just absolutely face tanks and slaps everything in the game that isn't Uber level at this stage. So anything in the previous sort of league in 3.17, it kills everything. It's ridiculous. I've done the form, but not the feared yet. It's taken down Maven, as you can see. I haven't done Uber Elder, and I'm considering just going straight to Uber Elder because, you know, for the lols. But anyway, we're sitting at full tree, and I'll talk about this in a couple, like a minute or so. We're sitting at about 15 million DPS, so 1.5 million per projectile, and I'll talk about how the damage works and how it scales and everything else. Now, I will say, to get to where I've gotten to, I have been farming Alls, or the Crystal King, in Delve, and selling the Alls Uprisings. I also had an Ashes of the Star drop, so I've pumped about 70x into this build at this stage, and this is like within 7 days of the league start. I'm at pure endgame, and I work a full-time job, so if I can do it, anybody can do it. That's what I'm sort of getting at with this video. So before you think like, oh, streamer RNG, oh, you got plenty of time, I do work a 6-day-a-week job more than often, so do the math. It is possible to do it. Time played, let's just have a quick look at that too. 2 days. So like in the course of a week, yeah, I've clocked up a fair more out, nearly 3 days worth of time. But that being said, you know, we've had 3 weekend days since as well. And that's just playing late in the nights and when I'm streaming with you guys and everything. So anyway, so it is doable. It's achievable. It's not a mirror tier build. Doesn't need to be. Could be. But anyway, let's talk about how the damage works and how basically the POB works. Okay, let's pull this bad boy up. All right, so this is our POB for this league at this stage. This is the one that'll be in the description. Now, the first couple things you'll notice is we have, so first of all, so you know I'm not full of shit, Sirus damage is ticked on, and we'll even put it Awaken a 9 for the, you know, because we can. And let's just go through the configurations. So, frenzy charges, we do generate frenzy charges, and the way that we do this is I have Cold Snap in my helm. So if I go back in, I have Cold Snap on a level 1 cast when damage taken setup. When enemies die within Cold Snap, you then generate frenzy charges with those corpses. So it's good while mapping and delving. Won't work on bosses though, so that's the one caveat there. Endurance charges, yes. The reason why we have endurance charges is because I take inexhonorable. So 25% chance to gain a charge when you're hit by an enemy. So in this case, I'm always being hit. I'm just a punching bag. So we're always going to have 3 endurance charges up, which is also how we max cap cold resist, because we're sort of playing by the wicket there a little bit. Further than that, focused. So we do use focus mechanics in this game, build, sorry. And the way that we achieve that is we have double damage crafted onto a shield for when we focus. And we also have 45% increased attack and cast speed while focused. And it's really important that you get that on the gloves, but we'll talk about gearing soon. Okay, so next thing. Are you on consecrated ground? No brainer. We're an Inquisitor, so we obviously have Pious Path, and where is it? Stupid POB. We have Sanctuary and Pious Path. I also have a Bottled Faith. You do not need a Bottled Faith. You could just use any old Sulphur Flask and just craft cast speed on it. And charges when you get hit, but I do have that as well. So, and that's just because I had the budget to do it when I started generating currency. So we are on consecrated ground. And have I been hit recently? Well, yeah, I'm pretty much getting hit all the time. This build, it lends itself to getting absolutely bashed every 2 seconds by enemies. So we're always getting hit recently. So I can't remember what's attached to that, but something is. And yeah, so we have that too. Now, intensity, we do have level 4 intensity because we do use the intensity jewel. We also take caster mastery here for 1 more additional intensity. Now, I understand when you first start casting, you won't have this. So if you go down, it does drop your DPS down to 750 with no intensity, and up to 4 when you're smashing bosses, you're at 1.5 mil per project. 15 mil for all projectiles, 1.5 mil for one projectile. So Sirus damage ticked on. Nothing else weird in here. Ticked on, pretty much all kosher. Now, we do have Scorched, we do have Brittle, and we do have Sap. My understanding of both Brittle and Sap is about 15%, and the reason why we have that is because it comes from the leadership's price. And when we talk about gearing, I will explain how we achieve that with the way you balance the intelligence and the strength in this build. So don't freak out. It's a really good caster item, and basically what Brittle does is it gets you up to 100% crit. So you can stack a bit of crit, and really all you're worried about is crit multi. That's why when you hear it in game and in streams and whatnot, it's always doing the crit sound because it's always critting, which is why it's so powerful. Now beyond that, we do have enemy is scorched at about 60%, I would say, give or take. So like 10% from the leadership's price. And I did something a little different because I'm an RF fanboy from last league. I am running a Legacy of Fury on this build, so we get 48% increased effective Scorch. I don't know how that quite translates into the percentage, but anyway, it's near enough is good enough in this case. And all enemies are scorched, and we basically have a technical exploder chest. So mapping with this build, as you'll see in the start of the B-roll, super efficient, and it just rips through enemies. Like you get like 2 mil just off these boots. It's insane. So anyway, that's how we get scorched so high. And even if we took that out, right, we still have stupid amounts. Take it to 50%. Pretty much like over like 30%. Yeah, like 25. Yeah, over anything over 30% and you're good. But in our case we got 60, and it really doesn't make any difference. It's capped. So anyway, and enemy is exposed to fire. Yes, this is true. And the reason why I have this is because I also have a where is it, Blazing Salvo. I also have a level 5 20% awaken fire penetration duel, so it gives you 10% chance to inflict fire exposure on hit. So that's how that works. Now, if I was, and we're on enemies on consecrated ground, and you have Bottle Faith, so that synergizes. Now, if we were running like Infernal Cry on the build somewhere, we'd get nearly like 1.7 million. But you know, we're then running temporary auras, we're running fucking all sorts of weird and wacky shit to get this working. And it's just more buttons to press, and I don't like pressing buttons when I'm playing builds. I just like to face tank absolutely everything. So yeah, we could run that. We could fit that somewhere. We could get a ring that we could fit that in. I may do that. But as it stands, I'm pretty happy with where it is. So yeah, anyway, that's how it pretty much works. So that's pretty much how the damage profile works for this build. So you know that there's nothing weird and wacky. Now, it took a little bit to unwind things to get it to work, and sort of just talking to where the damage comes from in this build, and I guess where actually that'll be the next part. So let's cut there and let's jump to the next part, which will be the damage breakdown and how we manage mana. Alright, I'm not going to bore us all by going into the sheer amount of bullshit that is going on with the damage calcs here, but basically how the damage calcs work are in two ways. So single projectile and then all projectiles, which obviously multiply the single by all, and that's what you get. But you're probably like, well, how the fuck did you get to 1.5 million DPS, Jorgen? Like, how does that even work? Well, number one, the leadership's price, really important. So the brittle stat and the sap stat. Sap's going to give you defense, brittle's going to give you the increased damage, and scorch, big contenders for building damage. So in that case, from the gearing perspective, the leadership's price, super important. The Legacy of Fury, super important. Now, the other thing to note as well is my dual setup. So I've got a level 21 that goes to 22 Blazing Salvo. I've got Awakened Spell Echo, which is like 14x. If you can't get this and you don't have the budget, get a Divergent Spell Echo and you'll get sort of close. It won't be as good. Your damage won't be as high. But if you can afford it, and honestly, as I said, strategy is farm all, sell shit out of Delve, and you'll make tons of currency and you can afford this build. Intensify, 2120. Awaken 5-pen, 520. Divergent Inspiration's really important with this build, but it does give you crit, but it also gives you reduction to cost, which is how we manage mana. And the reason, and this isn't a perfect Divergent because I tried to corrupt it and I bricked it, So the reason why we want to run Divergent Inspiration on this build is because it increases the mana reduction to the cost of cast. So that's how we get to like 19 mana per cast in the tree, as you can see here. And that's pretty much how you manage it. So Divergent Inspiration is really important for this build. And then we're running Pinpoint, and Pinpoint is actually a big contender. I need to get to 2120, and that'll beef the DPS up further. Now, if you wanted more DPS by another 400, 500k, you would need Divergent Blazing Salvo at 2120. So level 21 at 20%, which are expensive. I think there's only one on the market for like 8x, and I'm generating more currency. So that's another way that you can get the damage up further. And the obvious thing is on Flask. So damage is also coming from my Bottled Faith. I also have a Dying Sun, so I get more projectiles. So 2 more projectiles equals another 3 million DPS as well. And then if you're running like a standard like Sulfur Flask, just continually keep crafting cast speed onto your flasks, and that'll do the trick. Outside of that, the other forms of damage are, so you'll notice here on the panel here, it'll be at 18,000, right? But if I use focus, which I have mapped to my move button, it'll go up to 22.2 thousand. And that's because I get a 45% cast speed increase when I use focus, and I get a 14% chance to do double damage, which won't show in this stat down here, but it will increase your damage significantly. Now, the last thing that I'd probably say, or one of the other things that I'd probably say, I also have +1 to all fire spell skill gems in my shield. That's what it's called. And so we don't need an Aegis Aurora or anything like that. Like, if you wanted to be more tanky, honestly, you could put an Aegis Aurora on this and it would be ridiculously tanky and it'd never die. Like, if maybe if I wanted diverse bosses like that or whatnot. But as it stands, super strong with just a ivory. You know, this is like a 50 or chaos or 1x shield. So it's really cheap to get that geared up. Wand wise, I would ideally want a +1 wand, but basically you need to go crit multi, cast speed, fire damage to spells, and increase spell damage. And I got lucked out and I got 107% fire damage increase on this one, and I got it for dirt cheap. But that's basically what you're looking for wand. Now, if you can get a +1, you go up by, you know, another, if we do it on the POB. So we just take Blazing Salvo, +1 there, it goes up to 1.6. Like, and then if I corrupt the chest piece and get a +2, then potentially I could get up to like, you know, 20 million DPS without any problems and just absolutely face roll everything in the game. And you know what, we might push that build that far. But anyway, beyond that, also damage is coming from my rings. So cast speed on both rings, 16% on both rings, and also flat damage on the rings as well. So 14 and 14 increased damage. So 28% there, which is increasing my damage. Now you could take that off and trade for defense, but it's entirely up to you. This build is based on how tanky you want to be. As it stands, it's just melting through Delve and bosses and everything, as you've seen in the bureau. It doesn't even give a fuck about anything in the game. It just rips through it. In the helm, there's not really anything Actually, sorry, there is an implicit. That's was the Exarch craft. Yeah, Exarch implicit, which is fire damage to spells, which is just always great. And also, I am running a Hypnotic Eye that gives me fire damage to spells and crit multi, so that's also another form of where it's coming from. And then obviously the rest is all just coming from the tree. So that's, yeah, I'll leave it to you guys to go through, and I'll talk about the tree very shortly. Mana sustain is also partly coming from this Unnatural Instinct here. So this is giving me all the mana nodes here, mana regen nodes, and cast speed nodes as well. And the other thing that's given me mana sustain is also Tireless and these nodes here. And I also have Righteous Decree. So that's giving me 10% reduction to mana cost as well. So there's a few things in this build. Just be wary, just follow exactly the tree. Don't try and deviate it or anything like that. And you'll get to the same level of power that I'm at currently, if you want to follow in suit, if you're playing this build. But that's pretty much how the damage works and how the mana works. Those are all the sources of how I've managed it into the build, as well as balancing it with defense. Now, if I wanted to rip out these nodes, I'd be a lot more vulnerable, but I could pump it straight into, you know, Firewalker or something like that and get more damage. But there becomes a trade-off when you have more damage, but you can't take on the bosses, because this build still requires you to stand in one place and get slapped. So you have to balance between the two. I think 15.4 million DPS is a pretty amicable amount of damage, and if anybody has a problem with that, well, you know, you're crazy, basically, because that's more than what most builds in the game will have for the longest amount, especially after 7 days. We're 7 days in. I think everyone forgets that. It's not a race. Enjoy the game, and yeah. But anyway, let's get into the gearing and talk about what I've sort of introduced into this build. Okay, so gearing wise, so helm, really basic stuff. I do have implicit crafts on the helm, and it's 30% mana regeneration. This is significant to this build. But basically the target for the helm is maximum life regen where possible. I have about 827 armor on this helm as well, and life regeneration rate and any resistances that you could possibly get into the helm as well. The shield needs to be ideally something that buffs up spell damage, and this is not the best in slot shield. It can be much better. But flat life regeneration, +1 to fire skill gems. If you can get maximum resistance rolls as well, even better, and any other resistances you need. And then also chance to deal double damage is crafted on, which is a mastercrafted suffix that you get from doing the Jund missions, or the Syndicate missions, sorry. The wand, as noted before, try and get like 25% up cast speed, crit multi, fire damage to spells, and spell damage where you can. And then you also want to try and craft the chance to deal double damage on this, but if you can't do that, just basically follow my wand. Doesn't have anything special. This was like maybe a 80 chaos wand, something like that. Wasn't crazy. I found it. I was sort of lucked out on the path build on POE trade. So yeah. Anyway, that would be the one. Legacy leadership's price. This one is one of the more important items in the game. So it basically works where it does give you maximum resistances, and we do take advantage of maximum resistance stacking here. But you have Scorching Conflux, Brittle Conflux, and Sapping Conflux while your two highest attributes are equal. That's really important, and we'll come back to that at the end of this part of the video. Chest piece, you want a brass dome, 4 blue socket, 2 red. In my case, I've got also the highest roll I could possibly get. I think I paid like 8x for it at the very start of the league, first few days. This is not necessarily easy to do the off coloring, but if you can get 1/6 length, then you just have to work through the chrome process of off coloring. Harvest crafting also works really well in that respect, so if you're doing that, that's how you do that. Rings, same pretty much for both rings, is resistances, cast speed, life, dexterity, and flat damage. Really, really simple. And the reason why we need dexterity is so we can run Sniper's Mark, but we'll talk about that after. Gloves, I actually have nothing crazy in the implicits. The most important thing about the gloves here is the attack and cast speed while focused is in this build, because that is a huge damage stat for you, which a lot of people don't understand. That's how you're going to get up in those really high numbers. And then flat life, any resistances, try and get armor on it if you can. And I got +2, and I actually have my zealotry set up and everything in here, so I'll talk about that after. And then I just crafted on some life regeneration rate for quality of life. I think while we're idle, we have like, yeah, nearly 1,000 life regeneration and 1,142 ES regen as well. Belt, this was I actually got this on a roll. It actually dropped like this. So maximum life, maximum resistance. I actually have increased flask charges, duration, and gained. So like my Bottle Faith will recharge quicker, and it'll also last for longer. And then I just put straight up regeneration on it. And then my Hypnotic Eye is just crit multi, fire damage to spells, flat armor, and maximum life. And then obviously Legacy of Fury, which I've got in the POB, the enchant you do need on this. But basically, yeah, I just divine or orb it up until it hits like close to 40 or 50% Scorch, effective Scorch. Now, leadership price. So I won't talk about flasks. They're pretty simple, like, you know, Eternal Life Flask, Bottle Faith, Amethyst Flask. And I switch that between these flasks here for different situations. So if I want speed, I have a Quicksilver Flask. If I'm in Delve, Quartz Flask, so I can basically just glide through enemies. And I have armor rolls or stun rolls on these. Each one of these flasks I have gain charges when hit. And then Silver Flask, if I want to run Silver Flask for, you know, freeze immunity, and also speed and damage. And I'll just make sure that that's ticked on. Yeah, it is ticked on in the tree, so that'll be the flask that's included in the tree. So outside of that, how did I get leadership's price working? Actually, we'll cut the video and we'll do that next segment. Okay, leadership's price. This is really what gives us damage. It gives us build damage, but it's also really tedious to balance if you don't understand what you're doing. So one thing that you'll notice is that I have no strength rolled into anything on my gear. And the reason why is the second that you have any strength rolled into the gear, it will completely fuck up your ability to be able to balance this amicably. So if you follow the tree that I have, and you'll see it's very specific to the nodes that are selected, because it is perfectly balancing strength and intelligence. Now the only thing that I had to do to balance the strength and intelligence further is literally just put in a cobalt jewel with 10 intelligence to bring it up to par. The other thing is really important to make sure that the all attribute stat on the leadership's price is something that you can balance with just cobalt jewels in your tree. And I think that's the only cobalt jewel I've got in the tree. Yeah, that's the only one that I needed to balance it with. So literally, this is the only jewel that balances everything. If you notice, it's all rounded into roundings of 10 and 5. Now, you can't divine orb leadership's prices. They're corrupted from the get-go, and I'll talk about how I anointed this, or actually maybe that's another video, but basically you just use the corrupted anoint, and then, you know, you go from there. So pretty much that's the secret behind getting this to work, is do not have any strength stats in your gearing here. And also, strength provides no bonus to maximum life, so that won't have any impact on the overall build. So it doesn't matter whether or not you've got a brass dome. It doesn't take away the fact that you have strength on your ability here. But it's important to make sure there's no strength in the actual gearing or the items, and no other strength in this tree. If you follow this tree exactly the way that I've put it here, then you'll have no problems. And even down to the glorious vanity, this is actually removing strength stats that you might have to balance further down the track. So this is also how you manage it. So it's actually a required item to get this to work. It's a very, very, very delicate process. By the way, this is not the best glorious vanity that I could get for this, because I don't have the right rolls on these nodes, so I'm going to play around with this too. But that's pretty much the way that you get leadership's price to work, is no strength on gear, glorious vanity, and then follow the tree exactly the way that I've got it, and you'll be able to balance it with one jewel like what I was able to do. But that's pretty much it. Alright, gem setups. This one's straightforward. So Helm, Cold Snap, cast on damage taken, level 1. I accidentally put it to level 2, but don't stress, it's only 13 mana. And that'll constantly cast, and then you'll be able to generate frenzy charges, which will increase your mapping speed, your clear speed, your bossing speed, everything. And then we've got determination, and we've got anger in the helm. I've only got a level 20 determination. I'll probably get a 21 further down the track if I decide I want to do that. And then from there, Tempest Shield, Defiance Banner, and Divergent Righteous Fire is really important. The reason why we need Divergent Righteous Fire is because for each 1% of quality, instead of giving you like AoE or whatever, it'll give you 20, or it'll give you up to 20% increased buff spell damage. So instead of getting 40% or 41% in this case, when you get to level 21 or 22 roll, here you'll actually get 61% increased spell damage with Divergent Righteous Fire. So really important for this build. Definitely need it to buff an extra 20% flat spell damage in your build. It's really worth it. Flame Dash, Sniper's Mark, and Arcane Support are in my wand. The reason being is when you hit bosses, you're just going to hit Sniper's Mark. Now, I've only got balanced mine up to level 15, but that's still plenty of damage, and every 1% increases the damage further, so 35% increased damage from projectiles, and Blazing Salvo is a projectile skill. And then beyond that, Blazing Salvo, Awaken Spell Echo. Don't worry if you don't have 14x, normal Spell Echo 2120 or 20 whatever is going to be fine. It'll just drop the damage a little bit, but it'll be fine. And then Intensify, Support, Awaken Fire Penetration. It's like 1.1x for a level 5 at the moment, so you with 20%. So if you can, just do that, and then you get the fire exposure on hit. And then Divergent Inspiration. The reason why we need this is so that we get the increased mana cost reduction. I think it goes up to 45%. But I fucked mine up, and it's at 12% quality instead of 20 now. So I'll be re-rolling this and getting a new one. Anyway, and then Pinpoint is the last thing because it's projectile based. So we're running Intensify and Pinpoint, which really I don't know what other builds you'd run that on. And then in our gloves, we're running a Divine Blessing Zealotry setup with Life Tap. So what that means is we can't fully have all these auras up all at once. So basically, we have most of the auras up. So we've got Anger, Temper Shield, Defiance, Banner, Determination, and Herald of Ash up. And then we tap R, which I've got it mapped to. It costs 2,000 life. And we have Zealotry for like 13 to 14 seconds. So that just amps up the DPS, and we can just slog away and do more damage. So it's like a temporary aura. It costs life, and because we've got so much life regeneration, we can afford it anyway. And then we've got Herald of Ash in the gloves as well. And then in the boots, finally, we've got Cast when Damage Taken and Molten Shell, level 20 Molten Shell. So obviously, as I'm taking damage, my Molten Shell's popping off, and we don't need to think about it. And then I've got Shield Charge and level 20. Level 20 faster support as well. So I've got Shield Charge for those moments when you want to clear. And then I've got Flame Dash for like Maven and shit like that to get through the different areas. So you really do need that. It's important to have 2 mobility skills in this because it's a bit of a chunky build and you could get caught with your pants down more than often, unfortunately. Where you need to move out of the way quickly and Shield Charge just isn't good enough. But that's it for the gem setups. Next we'll talk about the tree. Alright, this is the biggie. So what I will say, as I was saying before, to get the leadership's price balance, you need to follow this tree exactly the way it's set out. Or if you've got another build guide that you're using for this, then follow the tree. It is completely designed to balance out that stat. So if you don't have any attributes on gear, aside from the leadership's price, you have a 15 attribute leadership's price, I think it was. Yep. Or even if you don't, you just need to balance it out with the intelligence on this jewel here. Everything else will get you perfectly balanced so that you get all 3 attributes or all 3 confluxes. So anyway, basically how this works is you're going to start here. You're going to pick up these damage nodes. I spec'd out all of these top nodes first. So when you're leveling up, this is more important than moving down. And then once you have all these nodes up here, you're going to move down, you're going to grab Glancing Blows, get Righteous Decree early on. On reflection, this would have made leveling a lot easier with Mana Sustain. You'll need Tireless. Don't worry about Corrupted Soul until you finally get your Glorious Vanity. And then you'll come across, you'll get Iron Will, Constitution, and Shaper. Now, don't go and spec these nodes until you get an Unnatural Instinct. If you don't get an Unnatural Instinct, don't freak out. Just find alternate routes to get mana. Maybe one way would be to come up and get Deep Thoughts, or anywhere else that you can pull mana out of, basically, in this build, because mana is going to be the biggest problem. You might even want to grab these other 2 mana reduction nodes here, and that'll help you sustain. You won't be able to make up that life regen, or actually, no, it's not true. You might be able to pick up your life regen here before you got your Glorious Vanity. And then basically go from there. But save up for your Unnatural Instinct. It's worth it. You get a lot of really good benefits out of it. Oh, bloody nose. Every time. Really annoying. And then you come down, you're going to get Barbarism, because now we're going to focus on max capping our resistances. And then you'll come down, get Heart of the Warrior. You'll pick up Elemental Resistances here at Prismatic Skin and Maximum Fire Res. And then we also, just for the lols, grab the Elemental Resist nodes here. Though, if you don't have Corrupted Blood, which you get from the other node up here, then grab Corrupted Blood as well. Then you're going to come across and you're going to get Soul of Steel, we'll get Bloodless, and then we want Exonerable, because we want to generate endurance charges, and we also want Armor Mastery here for Determination, that has 25% reduced reservation as well. Now, beyond that, you'll need to put Charisma on your amulet in this one. And you just need to look up how to anoint corrupted amulets for that one. I won't go into detail here, otherwise this video will be way too long. But that's pretty much the tree from the Pantheon, from the Ascendancy side. Let's just pop that open. So you're going to pick up Sanctuary and Pious Path first. Then you're going to get Augury of Penitence. This is going to reduce your elemental damage taken, or enemies won't be able to dish out as much. And then Righteous Providence, which is going to get you crit. It's also going to give you Strength and Intelligence, which is going to help you balance out your Strength and Intelligence stats and scale up your crit. But that's pretty much it for the tree. Really simple stuff. Finally, the Pantheon, you're going to want Soul of Arakali. This is to deal with chaos damage and dot, so your regen can catch up. In particular, bosses, this is really useful. And I have Solve to Kahama, so I get increased fizz damage while I'm stationary and increased life regeneration. Now, depending on the bosses you want, you might want to get Soul of Shikari as well, and this is going to deal with bloody poison damage. The only real weakness in this build is poison damage, honestly. It's the only time I really die. Toxic is a real pain in the ass for this build, but that's pretty much all you need to know about that. Other than that, that's the only downside to this build right now. But yeah, that's it for Pantheon. Hopefully this this video helps you get your Blazing Salvo up to par. I do understand that I got lucky and got some RNG at the start of League. So yeah, there is that. It'll take you a little bit to catch it up. If you are generating currency pretty quickly yourself, even better. My advice to getting quick currency is just go down and farm the shit out of the Crystal King and Delve. And if you're unsure, just follow one of my videos. I'll put 2 links in the description, one from League Start and one from last League, because nothing's really changed. That's pretty much how I'm doing it. I'm not doing anything special, just farming Delve and selling a shitload of currency. And I'll show you, for example, right now. I think I'm sitting on like, nearly 1300 chaos just from selling fossils. But yeah, anyway, if you like this video, if this build's cool, like and sub, and until next time, have a good one, and bye.